You said that marriage was not intended for all people, including, and I'm going to quote your words, our handicapped friends are our persons with physical disabilities that might prevent the robust marriage that we're called to, close quote. Did you say that?
I think I did, Senator, yes.
You believe that folks with handicaps and physical disabilities should not be able to marry?
Okay. Did you just see that? Because what you just watched is only a taste of what's coming. That clip right there is Senator John Kennedy doing what very few senators actually have the courage to do in these confirmation hearings, asking real, direct, uncomfortable questions and refusing to let a nominee hide behind vague, polished non-answers. Now I want to be clear before we go further. This is not about attacking someone's faith. People are allowed to have religious beliefs. That is a fundamental right. But this man is being considered for a lifetime appointment as a federal judge. No elections. No accountability to voters. Just decades of rulings that affect real people's lives. And Kennedy came prepared. Actual quotes. Actual dates. Actual sermons. No vague allegations. No hearsay. Just your own words, sir. And what does the nominee do? He dodges, deflects, and hides behind church doctrine every time things get too specific. That is exactly what Kennedy was exposing, and it is fascinating to watch. So we are going to watch the full video together, and I will break down every moment, because trust me, it gets more interesting. If you are new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this is the kind of content we do here. Let's get into it.
Mr. Olsen, I believe I looked at your resume. You are an elder in the Reformed Presbyterian Church of North America. Is that correct?
I am an ordained elder in the RPCNA. I am not actively serving.
In August of 2015, you gave a sermon at the Second Reformed Presbyterian Church. Do you remember that?
2015, I think that might have been a Sunday school lecture, but I spoke, yes.
During that sermon, you said that marriage was not intended for all people, including, and I'm going to quote your words, our handicapped friends are our persons with physical disabilities that might prevent the robust marriage that we're called to, close quote. Did you say that?
I think I did, Senator, yes.
You believe that folks with handicaps and physical disabilities should not be able to marry?
No, Senator. I was explaining the meaning of Christ's words that some, to use Christ's terms, are eunuchs by birth, and explaining that the meaning of that verse in the context of those who are called to singleness, and that there are various reasons why individuals don't get married.
But what about folks who are handicapped or who have developmental disabilities?
I was using that example as an illustration of why some don't get married, not as a kind of reason why someone shouldn't. It was illustrative of the condition in which some find themselves, but certainly not in any stretch of the imagination suggesting that they couldn't or shouldn't, merely that in some cases they don't.
On July 24, 2022, you gave another sermon at the Columbia Reformed Presbyterian Church. Do you remember that?
The Columbus Reformed Presbyterian Church, yes.
You were speaking about sexuality, is that correct?
I gave two sermons at that church, and the main topic of both of those was not human sexuality.
In one of them you said, quote, transgenderism, homosexuality, fornication, and all sorts of sexual perversions. was a form of hypocrisy from, quote, your words, shame on the inside. Did you say that?
That I don't recall the precise wording, but that sounds
What did you
familiar.
mean by that?
Yeah, Senator, thanks for the opportunity to clarify that. So I was preaching a sermon on a passage in the Old Testament about an Old Testament King Uzziah who was stricken with leprosy.
I don't have a lot of time, Counselor. Tell me what you meant by that.
Sure, that
Do
many,
you believe that fornication is a form of sexual perversion?
Senator, my personal views, my religious views, what I was speaking at that time were for the edification of the people that I was preaching to. As a judge sitting here today, my obligation is to apply the rule of law.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Constitution.
my obligation is to try to understand you, because this is a lifetime appointment. Do you believe that fornication, which I assume you mean by that the sex act, is a form of sexual perversion?
Senator, the doctrine of the church that I was at does state that fornication is a sin.
Well, what do you mean by fornication?
Any sexual act outside of the bounds of marriage.
Okay. So you believe premarital sex is a sexual perversion?
Senator, my personal views, as many have said before, I won't comment, but the doctrine of the church that I belong to.
Is it your doctrine?
I took, as an elder, I took a vow.
Is it your doctrine?
As an elder of the RPCA.
Is it your doctrine?
Senator, my personal views as a judge are not the object of what I would rule
right.
upon.
Give me one more minute, please, Mr. Chairman. On August the 23rd, 2015, you spoke in Sunday school, and you said, quote, I'm not saying women can't have careers. That's not what I'm saying. No, strike that. I'm reading the wrong quote. I apologize. In your talks at your Sunday school, you said that God, quote, has called wives to be subject to their husband, end quote, and to, quote, serve the good of your husband and support his calling, close quote. Did you say that?
I gave a couple Sunday school lectures around that time. I don't recall the particular one, but I think I recall saying something along those lines.
What did you mean by that?
So in Christian marriage, as explained by the apostles, I was describing our church's understanding of what Christian marriage ought to look like.
And you believe Christian marriage provides that women have to be subservient to their husbands?
Senator, I think I was quoting either a passage in Ephesians or those are not my words. Those are words in the
Well, you
scriptures
said them.
that
Do you believe them?
Senator, I believe every word of the Bible.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Olsen, can I just follow up on that, since he raised interesting questions, but let me just ask you, you're an ordained elder.
All right. Now you have seen the whole thing, and there is a lot to unpack. Let's start from the top. Kennedy walks in with a very deliberate strategy. He is not there to grandstand or make speeches. He is there to hold up a mirror to this nominee and say, "These are your words, now explain them." That is exactly what a senator on a judiciary committee is supposed to do. The disability comment was the opening shot. Kennedy quotes Olsen's own sermon where he suggested people with physical disabilities might be prevented from having what he called a robust marriage. Olsen's explanation, that it was merely illustrative, is technically plausible. But here is my issue. If your examples consistently land on vulnerable groups, disabled people, LGBT people, women, at what point do we stop calling it illustrative and start calling it a pattern? Kennedy clearly saw that pattern and was laying it out piece by piece. The 2022 sermon is where things really escalate. Kennedy quotes Olsen grouping transgenderism, homosexuality, and fornication together as sexual perversions rooted in shame. And Olsen's response. He starts talking about an Old Testament king with leprosy. Kennedy had to cut him off, and honestly, fair enough. This is a judicial confirmation, not a theology lecture. Then comes the fornication exchange, and this is the most revealing part of the whole hearing. Kennedy asks a simple, direct question. Do you believe premarital sex is a sexual perversion? That is a yes or no question. And Olsen cannot answer it. 3 or 4 times he retreats to the doctrine of the church. But Kennedy keeps pressing. Is it your doctrine? Did you take a vow? And Olsen finally admits, yes, he did. That matters. You cannot take a religious vow with one hand and wave it away as not personally yours with the other. Kennedy understood that and was not letting it go. The women in marriage section follows the same pattern. Olsen said wives should be subject to their husbands and serve their husband's calling. When pressed, he says those aren't my words, those are scripture. But then Kennedy asks the follow-up that closes it out. Do you believe them? And Olsen says, I believe every word of the Bible. There it is. If you believe every word, then yes, those are your words too. Here is my overall take. What Kennedy demonstrated brilliantly is the gap between how this man speaks in a religious setting and how he presents himself in this hearing. In the sermons he is confident, absolute, and prescriptive. In the hearing he is suddenly full of nuance and careful distinctions. That inconsistency is the story, and Kennedy told it without ever raising his voice. That is what good oversight looks like. A senator doing his job and making sure the public knows who is going to be making decisions over their lives for the next several decades. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand on this. Subscribe and share it with someone who needs to see it. See you in the next one.